Hello, hello, everyone. I can see attendees streaming in now, which is very exciting. Thank you for joining us today. I am going to wait a little bit to make sure that everyone can join before we get started. But in the meantime, what I'm going to do is I'm going to run through a little bit of information about how we're going to go through this today, the event, and how you can engage with us and ask your questions. So here in the GoToWebinar control panel, you can see there's a section called questions, and there's also a section called chat. I would encourage you to make liberal use of both of these to get your questions answered and to make comments. If you have questions, preferably put them in the questions box, but we'll monitor both because we know how these things go. And our goal today is really to have this be mostly a conversation. We've got lots of content we can present to you, which can kind of prod you all into some good questions, but we really just want to focus on making sure that we get your questions answered, and we really are here as a resource for you. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Welcome to today's event. The topic is how can I optimize costs and lower total spend in AWS, which is all about the topic of cost optimization. And some quick introductions. My name is Jonathan LaCour. I'm the Chief Technology Officer here at Mission. We'll talk a little bit more in a moment about who Mission is and what we do. But I'm also joined by two very smart people who are actually way smarter than I am on this topic. And I'll let them introduce themselves, starting with Jason.
Hey everybody, I'm Jason Gay. I'm a senior cloud analyst here at Mission. I've been with the company for about 7 years. Got about 20 years of Windows system administration experience under my belt before getting into the cost management side of things several years back. And this is just tons of fun. It's you know, you get to hang out with customers and talk to them about where they're spending their money and trying to help them out and make some improvements.
Nice. Yes, a lot more fun than Windows System Administration.
Sure is.
All right, Jeremy, tell us about you.
Yeah, so hi everyone, my name is Jeremy. I'm a cloud analyst here at Mission. I've been doing this for almost a year now. God, has it been 10 months? Yeah. And actually before that, I worked with AWS directly. I was a manager of their enterprise customer service team. And overall with AWS, I was there for 7 years in the same field of talking about account administration, billing, support, RI, savings plans, etc. So yeah, it's a fun topic for me. I know for others, they can be stressed out about cost and everything, but for me, helping out customers in order to get their dreams come true in the cloud and do it affordably so they can kind of reinvent. Yeah, it's an exciting topic. So
we're going to change your tagline on your email to Jeremy McClay, I make your dreams come true.
I love it. As far as the eye can see, you know, I can see the memes today. All right. Well, yeah, so you've got the dream team here, folks. We'll answer every question you have, hopefully. So let's talk a little bit about agenda today. So first, I'm going to actually give an introduction to Mission, talk a little about who we are, what our capabilities are, and how you can take advantage of what we have to offer. And then we'll do a quick poll to kind of gauge a little bit about you, the audience. And then we're going to go directly into Q&A. Now, as I mentioned, we do have other content here, which you can see in 3 and 4. We have some information generally about cost optimization practices, about Mission's kind of approach and our philosophy to cost optimization. And we also have some great customer success stories. And if we see a lull in the conversation and are not getting a lot of questions, we'll happily present that to you. It is great, compelling, wonderful information, and hopefully that'll spur on even more questions. So with that, let's go ahead and launch our first poll to get a little bit of an understanding about you, the audience. And this is not going to be shared publicly, so feel free to be nice and honest. So the question here is, on a scale of 1 to 5, how mature do you think your organization's cost optimization strategy is? With 1 being the least mature and 5 being the most mature. And don't be ashamed to answer a low number. It's totally okay. Believe it or not, in our experience, the vast majority of organizations fall in that kind of 2 to 3 range. Some are up in the 4 range, very few are at the 5 level. Right, I'm seeing some great responses roll in here. I'm gonna give it another moment or two. All right, let's go ahead and show the results. And look at that. Actually, we've got a nice little gradient here. Nobody feels like they're at a 1, which is awesome news. I think the fact that you're here already makes you at a 2, right, at the very minimum, because you're thinking about this actively. And 40% of you fall in that range. And then, we kind of have an even split above and beyond there with a 3, 4, and 5. So one of you here is just crushing it. I'm hoping to get your guidance actually for the rest of the audience, and that's fantastic to hear. And wonderful. Okay, so let's close that poll and let's talk a little bit about who Mission is before we get into Q&A. So Mission is an AWS Premier Consulting Partner and a cloud service provider. And that premier tier of consulting partner actually means that we have been vetted, validated, and verified by AWS to be their top tier consulting partner, which is fantastic. So this is the highest level of experience in engineering and consulting on AWS. And we have quite a broad set of capabilities. So as we mentioned, we have consulting capabilities across a bunch of competencies. So we do migrations, quite a few cloud migrations, DevOps, Microsoft workloads, for which we are thankful for Jason's 25 years of experience. Lots of SaaS workloads that we help manage, healthcare and life sciences competencies as well. Competencies are a place where you demonstrate success and a track record of that success, including customer validation of that success to AWS, and then you can achieve these competencies. And so this is another place where we are vetted and validated across these. In addition to those competencies, we also have designations, and these are similar to competencies. The managed service provider designation is one of the most difficult to achieve in AWS. We actually provide what we call cloud services, where we can do 24/7 monitoring, management, incident support, continuous improvement in DevOps services, and lots of other observability and things of that nature. So we're very pleased to be a part of that. In addition, we can deliver well-architected reviews and do immersion days for you, just like AWS can themselves. And then in terms of kind of the breadth of what we do, because we're a cloud services provider and a consulting partner, we really can be your one-stop shop, right? And our view is very much that there's a whole set of things that need to happen within an organization to have a true cloud center of excellence. And we provide all of those capabilities. And so if you have a core competency internally with DevOps, but you need help with cost optimization, we're here for you. And no matter what you need, we certainly have it for you across the entire lens of architecting, doing migration readiness, technology road mapping, POCs, migrations, which we've talked about before, including cloud transformations and CI/CD, infrastructure as code, 24/7 management. We have AI/ML-based security services, continuous DevOps consultation, and then all of this optimization we're talking about today. So we're about to go into Q&A, but I'm going to do one more poll and drill down one layer deeper and kind of hear a little bit about the areas of focus that you need help with. So let's go ahead and put that poll up. So this is, what areas of AWS do you feel like you need to work on the most for your cost optimization practice? And we've broken it down here into several categories, and I'll explain them really briefly as you're trying to make sense of them. Usage and cost monitoring is really instrumenting your environment, understanding where is my cost going, right? Do I have monitoring on this? Do I get alerts about my spend? Usage analysis is taking that data and surfacing insights and understanding what you need to do, what you need to execute in order to optimize. Optimization execution is actually taking those recommendations and doing things with them, buying your ROIs, managing your provisioning systems, right-sizing instances, and optimizing your storage. And then governance is, kind of making this a process, right? Making this an embedded part of your business, right? Metrics tagging, cost attribution, automation, and things of that nature. So I'm seeing some information roll in here, and it's really interesting to see the pattern so far. And yeah, this is one of the best parts.
I'm watching that as well, and I'm fascinated by how many people are voting for one particular category over another. So
yeah, and you can. This is a multiple choice, right? And so if you have struggles across the board, you can select them all, right? And so don't hesitate to do that if that's true. Right, let's give it one more minute here, or one more moment here. All right, I think we have Starting to get a quorum here on the votes. All right, I think that's what we're going to get. Let's put up the results. Okay, very interesting. So
Wow.
60% of respondents struggle with usage and cost monitoring, and I think we have some great news on that front. This is definitely an area we can talk about. Analysis, nobody said this is something you struggle with. So you need the data. Once you have it, you feel like you can analyze it and make good decisions. Execution, some of you struggle with actually executing against those recommendations. Governance is higher, and this is no surprise, right? This is part of being an organization that is excellent with cost optimization, and that means you have to make it a systematic part of your business. So wonderful, thank you for that. Let's take the poll down. And at this point, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stop sharing my screen so we can just focus on all of our lovely faces and start answering some questions. So please go ahead and start filing questions into the Q&A section. Let me go ahead and stop sharing my screen or pause it. Okay, so now you just get to see our lovely faces.
So those responses I thought were pretty interesting, right? The majority of people are talking about usage and cost monitoring, but nobody said anything about usage analysis.
Yeah.
Right? So, from my own experiences, and I'm pretty sure Jeremy will agree with me on this, but he's certainly entitled to his own opinion, and I don't want to speak for him. But Jeremy's always the show me the data guy.
I am.
If you don't actually analyze how you're using your resources and your infrastructure and what those associated costs are, there is virtually no way for you to save money in a logical manner in AWS. Sure, you can do it. You might get lucky doing it. But I find that to be really interesting to me, just based on the fact that that's probably one of the most important pieces of all of this. The usage and cost monitoring piece is certainly top of the list there. But if you're not actually reviewing the data, then that's, it's like having a monitoring service in place that you're not actually, caring about.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we're going to monitor these servers, and we're not going to do anything when they alert. So, but we're monitoring them.
Yeah. It's even surprising when you're looking at customers or talking to customers for the first time and they get the spike in their bill for the first time, right? Like maybe they run an instance that they didn't intend to or something like that, and they don't even have a CloudWatch billing alarm set up, right?
Right.
And that kind of is the beginning of your journey in the cloud. And one, what am I spending my services on? But two, how do I get notified how much I'm spending, right?
Yeah.
Those customers just put on their credit card, and each month they go, yep, I get a credit card charge. It looks good. Maybe I'm looking at it. Maybe just someone in finance is looking at it and kind of going from there. So,
yeah, and that's a great kind of question, I think, to start with here is like, what's job one, right, or job zero for me? And Jeremy's right on the mark there. To me, it's no surprises, right? You want to prevent surprises. So putting in some CloudWatch alarms to make sure that like your bill doesn't spike overnight, that's a really important like step zero, right? To reduce your surprises. And to Jason's earlier point around kind of why 60% of you said usage and cost monitoring is an area of focus for you, but usage analysis got 0 responses. This actually doesn't surprise me, right? It seems on the surface to be surprising, but when you think about it, if you don't yet have usage and cost monitoring, how can you even do any analysis, right? And so those of you who probably do have that in place, you're struggling with things like optimization, execution, and governance, which makes total sense to me. So we've got a good mix of folks here for that. All right. Want to take the first question? Yeah, I'll read it out and I'll let you guys both comment because you're going to have a better answer than me on this. What are your thoughts on reserved instances versus savings plans, and how do you assist customers to come up with a strategy to maximize their savings?
You want it, Jason? You want the tag in?
Ooh. The staccato. All right. So my thoughts on reserved instances or savings plans, they both accomplish the same thing. One might be easier to use than the other. One might be more flexible than the other. One might get you slightly higher savings than the other. Generally speaking, savings plans are a little bit more complex to understand. They generally take a little bit more effort and brain power to wrap your head around. I know when AWS first released these, I want to say it was like November of 2019, it probably took me a good month and a half to fully wrap my head around how they worked. And there's two types of savings plans, and those two types of savings plans line up with the two different types of reserved instances for EC2. You know, in terms of what you can save more money on an EC2 instance savings plan, but they're far less flexible. In fact, of all of our customers, I want to say we might have 2 customers using EC2 instance savings plans. They are so rarely used across our customer base. And really, it just comes down to flexibility. I'm a huge fan of the compute savings plan. I think part of the reason for that is it not only applies to your EC2 compute consumption, but it will apply to Lambda compute usage. It will apply to Fargate usage as well. But the big kicker with all of this is it's a global service, right? So you could have your resources running in Oregon and Virginia, and you could buy a savings plan in the Frankfurt region in EU Central, right? And you could have this savings plan hanging out there, and it could still be working and still apply to your infrastructure. That's the beauty of it in my mind. Yeah. As far as, I don't know if that answered the first part of the question. Jeremy, did you have anything you wanted to chime in on that, or?
Yeah, so just kind of reserved instance versus savings plan. I think you nailed it, right? The flexibility of a compute savings plan is just out of this world, right? If you know you're going to be with AWS for a long period of time, 3 years, and you have a good idea about what kind of EC2 spend you're going to have, like you're not shutting down servers anytime soon, a 3-year no upfront savings plan saves 48% versus on demand. It's just significant amount, right? I'm like, man, that's just such a bigger discount that you can get with a reserved instance, right?
Yep.
And yeah, you can get a little bit more if you commit to a 3-year reserved instance, but why do I want to commit to a 3-year piece of hardware that's going to go out of sync whenever they do their next reinvent, right? We talk about R6Gs being really good, and if you committed to an R5 for 3 years, you're not going to get to use the new Graviton instances. So as far as reserves for the savings plans, 3-year no upfront compute savings plans, that's easily my favorite. I can see specifics on a 1-year reserved instance, but I'm not going to get as big a discount as I would with a 3-year. So
I'm going to look at the second part of the question, which was how do we assist customers come up with a strategy to get the most savings? So much like what Jeremy said, 3-year compute savings plans, those things they're awesome, right? But we also have to recognize that many of our customers and many people we work with, they're risk adverse, right? And sometimes making that commitment to 3 years on this big giant, compute savings plan that's the CFO might freak out about that. So, there are some pretty cool options you can look at. We typically will look at buying a portion of your savings plan on a 3-year term, and then augmenting that with 1-year term. So you're not going to see the full value of a fully covered or 85% covered or so compute savings plan for 3 years, but you might see a portion of that on that 3-year plan to give you baseline coverage. The other piece of it that we'll look at is when we buy those 1-year plans, we don't buy it all at once. We generally encourage our customers, buy it, if you're going to get if the recommendation, I'm just arbitrarily picking a number here, is buy $4 an hour in a 1-year no upfront compute savings plan, I might suggest to a customer that they buy that over 4 quarters, right? Every 90 days, once, at the beginning of each quarter, reevaluate and determine how much savings plan coverage do you need, buy it that way and you have like a rolling savings plan purchase. Now there's a couple of things that accomplishes. One is going to be it lets you evaluate every quarter really where you're at and if you need more or less coverage.
Right.
It also lets you accomplish the fact that after that 1-year period goes by, you might find that you may not need that savings plan anymore. You might find that you've changed your services. So that happened a lot actually to customers when this pandemic started last year, right? The savings plans got introduced in November of 19. We had a couple brand new customers come on in like April, and they're like, oh yeah, we bought these savings plans, and how do we downsize from here? And unfortunately, you can't. That's the challenge with a compute savings plan is you can't sell it. You can't sell it. You can't exchange it. So when you start buying these things out in a staggered pattern, yeah, it might take you a few more months to build up to your full amount of coverage, but it gives you a lot more flexibility and bakes that into your coverage numbers.
Yeah, so how do you assist customers to come up with a strategy to get most savings? You have a conversation with the customer first, right? It's, hey, what are your plans overall with your architecture, right? Do you plan on going over to Lambda? Do you plan on going over to Fargate? Do you plan on going to containers, et cetera, right? And depending on that first answer, that determines how aggressive you can be with savings plans or RIs. Again, something that Jason kind of hinted at, and I definitely agree with as well. You don't go for the 100% coverage on day 0, right? You want to go for that 50%, 60%, 70% and say, all right, now we have the remaining amount to work with. And we can start getting rid of your idle instances, right size your instances. You can reduce your spend on EC2 and go into something else like Fargate or containers and still benefit, right? So yeah, it's
understanding your future is really important when you're making commitments, right? And so, you know, that's, and I totally agree with, right? You don't want to do everything day 0. And that actually drives home, you know, the whole concept here about our philosophy on cost optimization is that it has to be a continuous process. It's something you're always iterating on. You're always understanding how the world is changing around you, right? What got announced at reInvent, what new things are available, what technologies are we planning to adopt, what's our roadmap look like? But I think the other nice thing about that is it helps you be very targeted. So for example, you know, we definitely talked a little bit about savings plans over RIs for the past couple of minutes, but keep in mind, there's a lot of businesses out there. We have a lot of customers who are enterprise customers who have these large kind of legacy enterprise applications that they have to run in AWS, and they don't change much, right? You're talking about big beefy instances running monolithic applications that run 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year for years and years and years, and are a massive pain in the you know what to upgrade and or manage. And that is a perfect case for reserved instances. Commit long and commit hard because you're going to save. Those things do not change very much. Now, if you have a highly dynamic environment, you're maybe a software development organization, you're building things rather than buying things, you're going to benefit from something like a compute savings plan because you get more flexibility and you can be less targeted and more general around, okay, now we can move to Fargate, now we can do more Lambda, whatever it happens to be.
There's also a lot of services that still don't have a savings plan equivalent out there, right? So if we're talking, we've been focusing on EC2 savings for a while, but RDS still has RIs, Elasticache, Redshift, et cetera. So it's not as easy as saying, okay, cool, savings plans are the new thing. I'm going to forget everything about RIs, because then when we look at other services, like, wait, no, I got to reapply some of those same concepts. So.
And this is basically the thing that I always tell people about AWS is, you know, it is like having this incredible kind of control panel in front of you with all these toggles and switches and dials that you can turn up and down and whatever. And it can be very intimidating, but you get a lot of control. You get a ton of capability to say, I'm going to commit here, I'm not going to commit there. I'm going to use savings plans, I'm going to use RIs, and it's not a which is better. It is the answer to that is it depends, right? It depends on what your future looks like, depends on what the workload looks like, your goals, you know, all sorts of things. And so, you know, definitely a continuous process. Okay, next question is around tagging strategies. And so this is actually a great question because there are many different types of tagging strategies. And then the second part of the question is, how do we help customers to adhere to strategy? So let's start with what some common strategies are.
You can start on this one, sir. You're like to go. You're like, I got my itch trigger finger here. I'm going.
Yeah. So common tagging strategies that you encounter. First, you got to think about what type of reports am I going to need for finance. I think that's usually what people think of the first time is, okay, I need to get this report so I know what environment is having the highest cost. What are my customers, projects, cost centers, those kind of things. And really you just got to say, all right, what are things that I need to have a report on? Okay, I now know. Let me go and start tagging those things that are important, right? First thing, and I always say as far as a strategy, one, automate it, right? It's cool that you can go in and start tagging all those things specific to like an environment, test environment, staging environment, product environment, But if you're creating it manual, someone's going to forget about it, especially as your organization continues to grow. And it's just going to create another headache where you have to go back and re-tag everything every 3 months in order to get your report to finance. But yeah, so tagging strategies: 1, figure out what you want to report on; 2, figure a way how to automate it using either Lambda or a third-party tool. And then the third thing is you just got to follow up on it and make sure that it's baked into everyone's idea. So
It's funny you bring that up. So one of the most common things I get asked from a customer is, what should I tag? What tags should I use? I don't know. What's important to your business, right? It's like, what do you care about? What do you need to know, and what do you want to know about? Are you looking to just get cost information out of these tags? Are you using it for automation in your environment? What's really important? So that's to me, I guess the biggest question is, I don't like to just deflect instantaneously, but you kind of got to deflect that back on the customer at times, and just say, all right, well, let's try to tease that out of you and understand what's important to your business. Oftentimes you'll come up with things that people just never even expected. Things that I thought were, common things that we see. You mentioned it before, Jeremy. Environments. That's a very common tag that we see. We see application or project. That's common ones. But some of the other interesting ones are things like technical owner or product owner, right? You can start looking at your costs by which person in your organization is costing you the most money, and people are like, wait, what? I don't want that information. Right. Well, if you don't want it to be about you, then make sure you do something about it. So
there's nothing better than turning on the tag for created by and then seeing what's not tagged. And you can go, hey, you created this, but you didn't tag it. We're going to bill that to you directly.
Right. Yep. Yeah. This becomes really important, and I think that to me the key thing is, as a CTO, I don't just have one lens that I care about, right? I don't just care about which owner, which part of my organization, which product, which environment. I care about all of these things, right? And these are different lenses, right? And to me, the most important tagging strategy is to not under tag, right? You want to make sure you're getting visibility kind of in multiple different ways. And I'll give a good example about this. We do a lot of work with media and entertainment customers. And let's say there is a movie studio that is about to release a new film, and so they want to put up a website for that film, a microsite that markets and promotes this film. Well, this is a great project tag, right? To go in and say, like, okay, let's tag all the infrastructure for this project, for this marketing website, and let's track that cost through the life cycle of that marketing campaign and see what the ROI is, right? And so you're really transitioning your thinking from like, okay, what's the cost center here, to a whole project, right? And really think about things in a very granular way. We are going to try this thing. Let's experiment and see if it's successful. And if it is successful, then you can scale up. And this sounds a lot to me like if you're in a marketing organization, you're doing things like SEO, and you're managing a bunch of different versions of a landing page or different versions of a website, you can do similar types of experiments with tagging in AWS. And that'll give you the freedom to say, like, I don't know how I want to deploy this workload. So let's deploy it in this way and that way as sort of a test case, tag across both, and see what we learn. So don't underdo it. Don't overdo it either. Right? You can get kind of crazy positions, but it's a really great resource for you. And you have to understand that you get multiple lenses that you can kind of get.
It's an interesting point too. A lot of the times customers will come to us. They're building out a brand new infrastructure, right? And tagging isn't really the first thing that comes to mind.
Right.
It's like, how do we want to report on this stuff down the road? I don't know. So but it's important to start thinking about it early on in the process, because if you have to go back, if all of a sudden you launch all this new infrastructure and you've got 4 months worth of resources that have been spun up and torn down, and you can no longer go back and easily tag them or figure out what they are.
Right.
All of a sudden you have these costs and you're like, I don't know what this stuff's attributed to. What cost center does this stuff fall under? So if you start thinking about that up front at the very beginning of your cycles, it doesn't have to be perfect. nothing is going to be perfect. That's the beauty of some of the tools we use. With native AWS tools, it's a little bit more challenging, but the tools that we use with Cloud Health make that a heck of a lot easier.
Yep.
You can go back and attribute some of those old costs and say, oh, okay, well, that's all going to be toward this environment or this project specifically, or this application, and it's a lot easier to go and fix that. But still, it's effort where you can fix. If you think about it and you just spend an hour or two thinking about that stuff before you launch resources and make sure those tags are in order, you're going to have a much more successful attempt at reporting later on down the road.
Yeah, for sure. And I think, given the questions that we've received so far, it's a lot about our strategy, right? And, given that, keep the questions coming, but I'm actually going to go ahead and present some of this content because I do think it'll be valuable for you all to hear a little bit about our philosophy and the way we view cost optimization, and definitely continue to have the questions coming, ask for clarifications, but I think it'd be valuable for us to talk a little bit about, kind of what cost optimization looks like to us. So what we're looking at here is a real example that has been scrubbed of a customer in AWS and what we call the continuous climb. This is the common pattern. Why? Because the cloud is a fully self-service environment, right? You can spin up instances and create things on demand and new resources all over the place, and it's all consumption-based, and you've got all this power at your fingertips. And you put that in the hands of an engineering team, and guess what happens? Up and to the right.
Big old spot.
Yeah. And if you don't have this sort of people process tools approach, this sort of continuous model, what you're going to get is you're going to get these kind of continuous climb. Now, you'll see here, the typical thing that happens is people make large reactive purchases of RIs and say, oh, I have to solve this problem. And so then they solve it for 2 months, and then it continues to go to climb and climb and climb, right? And so, you can't just rely on that. You have to be more strategic about it. And this is another customer, another real customer that again is scrubbed. And this is a more ideal spend pattern. And so they've engaged with us to help drive this sort of programmatic cost optimization in a continuous fashion. And you can see the outcome, right? It's a much more steady state. And we're doing kind of more strategic purchasing of smaller RIs, savings plans, and things of that nature. And for this customer, their usage was actually growing. They were going up and up and up in what they were accomplishing because their business was growing, but their costs were able to stay relatively steady. And they just had these one-time purchases of RIs, kind of more strategic, that are smaller, that they can plan for to make sure that they can be, keeping their costs in check.
And this goes back to just exactly what we were talking about a couple of minutes ago with that savings plan question, right? You don't just buy it once and let it sit for the year and hope it still works. You make smaller purchases, you make them more frequently. This is going to help you maintain those costs and reevaluate things on a regular basis. Everybody's environment changes. I've seen so few customers who have this static infrastructure that never changes. That's not what technology looks like anymore.
Right.
So if you're going to have to reevaluate, but exactly what you're saying here, usage is climbing on this, in this case, your costs are coming down.
So these are sort of our design principles of cost optimization. And I think it's nice to talk these through as well, because it opens up a lot of the different techniques that we end up using. So the first is embracing the consumption model, right? So we talked about the kind of downside to that is, you can spin up anything you want on demand, and you only pay for what you use, and so it's up into the right danger if you're not on top of it. But if you can harness that for yourself, you can be highly strategic. You can do things like, I know that this workload only needs to run from this hour of the day to that hour of the day, right? It's consumption based. Why don't I just turn it down during those hours? If you aggressively implement auto scaling, right, to make sure that you break workloads down into smaller EC2 instances, rather than huge chunky ones, you do kind of horizontal scale, smaller instances that can support your workload, and you get more granular and only scale up and down as needed in a much more smooth gradient rather than these big step functions up and down. So embracing that consumption model, lights out policies, all of that. Any other things to add on that, guys?
I mean, you nailed my favorite. Turn off the lights of the house whenever you're not home, right? The number of times when we're talking about
policy, Jeremy. It's my dad.
The dad policy.
The dad. why are we touching the thermostat when we don't need to?
Why are the lights on? I feel like obliged to walk into a room in my house right now. I have 3 teenage boys. Anybody in this room? No? Great. Turn your lights off.
Yep.
Anybody using these servers? No? Great. Turn them off.
And even more to the point, make it programmatic, right?
Yep.
Add a motion detector in the room. That's exactly what this is all about, right? Make it automatic. Lights go off when you're not in there. So yes, embracing the consumption model, measure your overall efficiency, tag your resources, and apply governance policies. All of these really get to cloud native tooling, right? And so this is a common question we get all the time is, what tools do you use, or what do you recommend that we do in order to give us that visibility? This was the #1 thing that this entire audience said they needed help with, is getting the data, right? Show me the data. And I will say that AWS is very customer obsessed to provide some really useful things to customers. I would say Cost Explorer is nice, but definitely isn't the full answer to your challenges, right? So I'll let Jason and Jeremy talk a little bit about what we do instead.
Yeah, so I know with, okay, so I worked with AWS for 7 years. I definitely have a lot of experience with Cost Explorer. I like Cost Explorer now than it was, but even then it's lacking a couple of functions and everything else. When I work with large enterprise customers, when they're first joining AWS Cloud, we talk about, okay, here's the PDF copy of your invoice so you can know what you're spending. Right. Now let's talk about Cost Explorer so you can drill down a little bit about what you're spending. Okay, yep. Now let's talk about the cost and usage report. Oh, by the way, you can't open your cost and usage report in Excel. You need to start doing Athena queries or something like that. So the fact
we'll give you the report, but you're going to need to use another service to open it.
Right. It's like, here's all this data, have fun.
Yeah.
So exactly. The fact that here in Mission, we use Cloud Health, which reads directly from the cost and usage report, provides all these nice, pretty tools, reports, everything else, and allows me to drill down even further. I love it, right? It gets customers to the last step of their journey on how do I get the data and know how to look at it faster. Yeah. Because it looks like Cost Explorer, but I can do a little bit more, and I can do a lot more once I know a lot more about it. So,
anything to add to that, Jason?
No, I mean, I think I've referred to it in the past quite a bit as Cloud Health is what we use, and Cloud Health is Cost Explorer on performance enhancing drugs. Yep. So it's it makes things easier. It's going to have about 95% of all the reports you'll ever need baked into the platform, and they've done their homework of these are the things that people use the most frequently. Let me go and build a report for that, so it's already there, and you just got to click a button. You want to break your costs out by account? Great. One of the things Cost Explorer does, Cloud Health does really, really nicely that Cost Explorer doesn't do is handle tagging, right? Yep. So one of the things, if you apply a cost allocation tag into into your AWS payer account, and you turn that cost allocation tag on today, it's only going to present you with cost data on that tag from today on forward.
Right.
When we look at that information in Cloud Health's going to take that information and say, oh, that resource that tag is in, that tag's been applied to that resource for the last 8 months since that resource has been alive. We're going to show you the cost retroactively as well. And it's like, whoa, holy moly, I can go back and see what things look like.
It's like a time machine.
It's huge.
Yeah.
It really is. And people don't realize that. And it's like, oh, well, how do I get that data? Well, not only do you have the current data, but you have the historical data too, which is pretty awesome. Makes it a heck of a lot easier to go and like make a decision around it.
Yeah. I think my favorite feature on Cloud Health, no, I'm interrupting, so I'm the one who should be apologizing, but I'm not going to because I have a cool thing to say. My favorite thing about Cloud Health whenever I was comparing it to Cost Explorer was the resource ID. Because if I don't have a good tagging strategy with my organization, then I need to look at resource IDs specifically. I cannot get that data in Cost Explorer. It's impossible. I could go and look at the CUR, but again, I have to set up a CUR. I have to do Athena queries. I really don't know what I'm looking at. When I'm looking at Cloud Health and I see this bar on RDS that looks like it's higher than it should be, I can click on it directly, and it gives me every line item that makes it that cost during that time period. And it comes with the resource IDs. And I'm like, that is just great. So
there's two things to build on that. So the first is the most important best practice for this entire group, other than just turning on CloudWatch alerts around your billing, is to make sure that you have the cost of usage report enabled. This is, to me, this is like, and we're an AWS Premier partner, and it is not my job to be too positive on AWS and not hold them accountable to things. This is one of those things that I think is just bonkers that it's not enabled by default. Like, you should absolutely turn this on now if you don't have it, and it should be on all of your accounts, because until you have the data, you can't have the time machine if you don't have data from the past, right? So turn on your cost and usage report. Yes.
Yes.
Good.
Again, what I tell Jason all the time is show me the data. And again, if the curve's not on, you can't show me the data. All right, we're gonna end up having to collect data for 30 days before we can actually start reporting on it. So
you're flying blind, and this, like, even if you don't have, a tool like Cloud Health and you don't have a strategy yet, you don't have it, turn on the reports, and then you'll be able to look back until you can look. That's the key thing. So just make sure you enable it. The second thing is we talk about Cloud Health as this sort of cost explorer on performance enhancing drugs, as Jason refers to it, and it is amazing. But it is an investment, right? And so just be aware of that. It's an investment across two different lenses. First, you have to actually buy it, right? It does cost you a percentage of your bill. It's entirely worth it, in my opinion, right? Yep. Because you're going to save far more than you spent with this data and these reports. The second thing is you have to invest in making sure that your team understands how to use it, right? Because it is a very powerful platform. You get a lot of canned reports, but if you're going to get the most value out of it, you need to make sure your people who are helping you with cost optimization internally are extremely strong with how to use Cloud Health. Now, I try to avoid doing too many pitches in this conversation, but I will say this is definitely an area where our mission can help. So we do have a program that we call Cloud Foundation, and there's two advantages to this. Well, there's three. First, it's cost neutral. You don't have to spend anything. You just procure your AWS through Mission. And for that, you get two things. One, you get access to a very smart person like Jason or Jeremy. And it might even be Jason or Jeremy, who is your cloud analyst. And they can, interpret all the data that's coming out of Cloud Health, give you great recommendations. Oh, and you get Cloud Health, and you don't have to pay for it. Right? So you get kind of the people, process, and tools. We meet with you on a regular basis, and it doesn't cost you a dime. So to me, that is the biggest pitch I will give you in this entire conversation. It's basically a no-brainer, no-risk proposition. It's no long-term contract. You just join up, you get access to all these smart people, you get access to Cloud Health. You don't have to spend anything, and you're going to start saving. Right? So it's literally like the easiest decision you can make. And there you go. That's my only pitch of the conversation. So let's continue on our cost optimization design principles. So on the right-hand column here, you can see re-architecting to leverage microservices. So earlier I talked about auto-scaling, right? And breaking your application, if they're running on traditional EC2 instances, into smaller instances, and using auto-scaling to make that a more granular scale up and scale down to save you money. Microservices allow you to take a monolith, which has to scale up the whole thing and down, into smaller components, right, that you can scale independently. And that is another big boon to kind of your cost savings as well. Yep. That can be challenging, admittedly, but it's worth the investment. And you should do an analysis of this in advance, right? You can say, like, I've got this big monolith. I can see where my application is hot and where it isn't. And I'm scaling this entire thing up for no good reason at all. You can do an analysis of what that investment might look like and what the return would be. The next is to reduce your licensing burden. This one can be very complicated, but many of you are probably using things like Microsoft Windows or Oracle or SQL Server, and there are some great mechanisms you can use within AWS to either re-platform to a different database, for example, or to collapse that licensing into something like an RDS.
Yep.
And reducing OpEx, right? A huge cost for many companies isn't just their AWS bill. It's actually making sure that you have the people to manage all of those things in the environment. And with things like RDS, it gets your hands off. You don't have to worry about it as much. You just get an endpoint and you talk to it and you're good to go, right? You don't have to manage the upgrades of the database or configuration files or any of that. And there's a lot of managed services within AWS that you can and should adopt. And then the last is to optimize over time, right? This is what we've been talking about. You continuously improve. You have governance policies in place, and you're always moving the ball forward.
Yeah, I mean, to kind of put it a little simply too, it's always, whenever I'm talking to customer, one, let's find the idle resources, let's find the oversized resources, and then we make that commitment, and then we keep moving forward, and we continue this cycle of, cool, let's keep doing it, especially as new infrastructure comes in. So
yes, exactly. Well, I think we've answered a couple other questions that came in just through this conversation, so that's good. If I haven't, please chime in on chat or resubmit the question. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep going here because we've got a little bit more information to share around kind of cost optimization. So I recognize that this looks a little bit intimidating, but you'll recall earlier we said, where do you need the most help? And that's where these areas came from, right? In our view, there is a cost optimization life cycle, and you have to do all of these things to really have a complete practice. And there's 28 distinct activities across 4 categories, right? And 4 phases. And these are obviously circular, right? You continue to go through this as you're moving through your journey. And you can see a lot of these things are simple things that we've talked about already, like usage and cost tracking, reporting and alerts, cost allocation. You can get all of these things with Cloud Health. And then you have to actually do the analysis, right? And understand, what you should act on there. Building on trends, looking for unused resources, over provisioned resources, things that you're managing yourself. And are you in the right regions? Are you using the proper services? Frequently, people are in the wrong region. That is a surprise that has occurred to me over the last few years.
It's interesting with that too, right? Not only they're in the wrong region, but I don't think people realize that there are different costs in different regions.
Yeah, people often don't realize that.
Right here in the US, like if you look at Oregon and Ohio and Virginia, for the most part, those regions are all priced the same. But all of a sudden you go to Northern California and you're looking at like a good 10 to 20%, surcharge on all the pricing. I still don't know why. Jeremy might have some insight into that. I don't know if he does or if he doesn't. I don't mean to put you on the spot, but
no, not really.
Northern California, it's rent control on the data centers, right?
Yep.
Come on, that was a pretty good thing.
Environmental, like whatever it is, doesn't matter. But
it's cost of power, almost certainly cost of power.
So yeah, I mean, there's costs to think about with that. Like, oh, well, Northern California is closer to me, geographically, right? But is there any major difference in the latency you'd see from moving to Oregon? No? Great. You could probably move to Oregon and save a whole bunch of money here, and you don't have a whole bunch of resources to move.
Yeah.
So think about those types of things that are out there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I was thinking about VPCs in the same region and how you get 2 VPCs in 2 different availability zones, and they're talking across to each other. And that creates that regional data transfer cost that I see a lot of customers fight with.
I will say, yeah, that's definitely one of those areas where there's been a little bit of a hullabaloo on the social media lately around AWS's bandwidth and transit fees, which are, again, I'm not here to just be all rosy on AWS all the time. This is definitely an area where you can get bit. And they are not inexpensive for bandwidth and transit in general. So being very smart about that and making sure you're not, sending data in through different areas as you don't need to, you can save a lot of money.
Yeah.
One thing to think about with that too, you have customers that'll come to us, like they might have multiple accounts, right? Let's just say you've got 2 accounts with infrastructure in both accounts in the Northern Virginia region. We can have customers come to us and ask us, hey, I've got infrastructure in US East 1B, and why am I getting charged data transfer to go to US East 1B in the other account? Well, the reality is those availability zones are going to change from account to account. So US East 1B from my first account might be a different availability zone from US East 1B in the other account that I have. There's an actual unique identifier on those, and it's done to prevent people from overloading one specific AZ. But there's data transfer costs from that. Even if it's the same AZ, you're still going account to account, and you've got to exit your existing account and go to another one.
My other favorite is NAT Gateway Transfer and the gigabytes processed by your NAT gateways. That's great if your NAT gateway is connecting out to the internet, and that's what you're supposed to do. But if you design your infrastructure so it goes from EC2 to your NAT gateway, and then from your NAT gateway to S3, that's an extra cost that you actually don't need. Yeah, it's simple, and I'm glad you routed that way, but putting EC2 with an S3 endpoint to talk to S3 directly, that saves you a bunch of money depending on how much gigabytes you're transferring from between the two services. So yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing that I actually think comes up here is we talked a lot about private pricing. Well, we talked a lot about committed pricing models for RIs and savings plans, but there's also private pricing agreements that you should consider, right? And so, you know, many things are on the table when it comes to private pricing. So if you are an organization that has, say, quite a lot of CloudFront usage, right, or a lot of regional transfer, right, there are options that we as Mission or you as an AWS customer can go to AWS and say, hey, I would like to make a commitment around this, and I would like a significant reduction in my price. I would like a private pricing agreement, please. We negotiate dozens of these.
Yeah.
And the biggest one is called an enterprise discount, so the EDP program. That is a very complex process to navigate, but you can recognize incredibly large savings with an EDP. But you do need to make sure that you are right-sized before you go into that EDP, that you want to be relatively optimized going into it so that you can make not overcommit, right?
Yep.
And the second thing is you really, you know, I like the analogy of negotiating an EDP by yourself is sort of like buying a house without having a real estate agent. And Mission negotiate these all the time. And so unless you have experience negotiating EDP, definitely recommend you know, potentially engaging Mission to help you with that, because we are really good at it. All right, anything to add on that, gentlemen? Or I think we might have time to go to a case study.
Yeah, let's take a look at one of them.
Yeah.
Okay, let's skip through that because we've already talked about people, process, tools. Let's look at, you want to go to Driven first, Jason?
Yeah, I can take this one since.
Sure.
All right, so Driven is a customer we work with. They do litigation support. When we first started working with them at the end of last summer, their costs were like skyrocketing. They were jumping up $25,000 a month every month. And they had seen their spend get all the way up to about $185,000 a month. Over the course of I would say 5 to 6 month period, we brought their costs down nearly $73,000 a month, which is about 40%, saving them about 900 grand a year. I'm really good friends with their CFO now. We can go to the next slide. All right, let me bring up my notes. Give me 1 second.
No worries.
There we go. All right, so here's what we're looking at here. When we first started working together, they had a decent amount of reserved instance coverage, but what their problem was is they were treating their AWS infrastructure as if it were still on-prem data center infrastructure. So all of these resources were over provisioned. Now think about that as, you know, you buy a server for a data center and you've got to plan for that server to be around for the next 3 to 5 years. That's exactly what they were doing in AWS. Yep. So a lot of this was, well, we can't really do a whole heck of a lot while these RIs are in place. We can try to sell them. The challenge with selling some of the RIs they had is this infrastructure was Windows heavy, and selling Windows reserved instances is not an easy task. People don't like to buy them, and especially when they're not in commonly used regions. So identifying which RIs were going to come offline first, we work with them like, all right, as soon as these RIs are done, let's go and right size these resources and make them smaller, find something that's more appropriately sized. Right. So you'll see here in the graph, the red is what their cost came down to after RIs and savings plans were applied. The blue portion of that graph is just showing you kind of what the compute costs was. I don't think that's actually, I think I have the names backwards on my label here, but what the compute cost came down to overall. Actually, it was just compute costs.
Right.
Sorry. So as these things expired, we right-size resources, introduce a mixture of 1 and 3 year compute savings plans. And this customer had resources all over the globe. So say compute savings plans made a whole heck of a lot of sense because we could take advantage of that a lot easier than we would with RIs, and it lets them move things around. So we saw about $40,000 a month in savings alone just from RI coverage and savings plans and right sizing. All right, let's go to the next slide here.
So I know a lot of customers, whenever they're joining AWS Cloud for the first time and they're saying that they're good at cost optimization, the first thing they say is, yeah, I know how to buy RIs. I'm like, yeah,
Yep.
but what about everything else? What about right sizing? What about finding data resources?
Right.
Exactly.
And it's teaching that kind of thing to customers, I think, is what I find, especially when you're just talking to someone about what are they doing to save money, and they go, oh yeah, I bought a 3-year convertible RI, I feel good. I'm like, yeah, but what else?
Are you leaving money on the table is the question, right?
Yeah.
A lot of times you maybe feel like, oh, our organization is pretty mature, but look, things evolve. New things have been introduced, and new things get introduced all the time. And so that's the other thing to consider is, unless you've done a deep dive recently, you're probably leaving money on the table.
Yep. All right, so in this slide, what you're looking at here is their S3 usage. So again, with litigation support, they keep a lot of information in S3, and what we found was they were keeping a lot of information in S3 standard. In fact, they were keeping everything that they had ever litigated against or assisted with all in. I'm terrible with the legal industry. Sorry.
All their stuff.
All their stuff was kept in S3 standard. So one of the things that we did was help them to identify what is where. Now, one of the big challenges some customers have with this is they keep everything in one S3 bucket. Don't do that. Try to break things out, make it logical, because you can apply policies much more granularly. In this case, we wanted to help them move a whole bunch to S3 infrequent access. They couldn't actually do that, mostly because they didn't know the access patterns of these objects. What they did know was that they only needed projects and objects in S3 while that project was active, and then they could dispose of it. So we determined with them, all right, well, how long are most projects active? And they said, we never have a project active any longer than 18 months. So what you see here, that big giant drop off in the end of November last year going into December, was them starting to put lifecycle policies in place to say, all right, anything over a year and a half in age, get out.
Yep.
So automation of purging of objects. And that's kind of how that trend spent the entire way. So this ultimately dropped them about 300 terabytes of storage, saving them $8,000 a month at S3 standard.
Awesome.
And even if you're not sure about how often your objects get access, they have intelligent tiering on AWS that can do that analysis for you to put things in infrequent access right away. Yeah, I like the again, S3, I like the service. It's actually really cheap for what it does, but you can just make it better. Like infrequent access is great, intelligent tiering is great, Glacier is Glacier. Yeah,
So I know we were getting short on time, so I'm going to go through this one quickly. So this is all showing EBS storage, and you'll notice that the storage costs had kept going up and up and up toward the very beginning of this slide, with the first 3 bars on this, and then there was a pretty significant decline through March. That was all done through better disk management. It was converting volumes from GP2 to GP3 storage. It was helping them define or decide which disks are just simply over provisioned. Do I need a 1 terabyte volume that's holding 80 gigs of data? No. So that was kind of cool, and we can go from there. You'll see at the end of it, the usage at the end was going up, but that was just based on the fact that their usage was actually increasing. And the last slide here is really about FSX usage. FSX is kind of like a network file system. It's similar to NFS, just for Windows. And in this case, they saw quite a bit of usage that they weren't really fully utilizing. It was all in the Sydney region. IT team, they weren't fully aware of all these patterns. And then, we converted quite a bit of SSD-based storage to hard disk storage to drop those costs significantly. And then backups hadn't even been given a thought. So they had just been taking random backups of FSX before, and we had tried to help them out to design some sort of a pattern and schedule for it. All of that led to about $25,000 a month in savings.
Awesome. I'm glad we got through that. So we're at the end of our time. I have two pieces of information to share with you. Both are very compelling, so listen up. The first is that if you are interested in what you heard today and you're looking to kind of make that first step and start realizing some savings, we have a pretty awesome program called the Instant Discount Program. And this lets you save up to 5% off of your AWS bill every month for the next 12 months instantly. Right now, not all accounts are eligible for this, but many accounts are. So if you are interested in finding out if you are eligible for that, and if you can save 5% off your bill immediately for the next 12 months, 5% a month, then please do go to missioncloud.com/IDP, submit your information, and we'll get in touch with you about that. And there's a lot of benefits as well, because you also get Cloud Foundation as part of that. So you get access to a Jeremy or a Jason, you get access to Cloud Health, and not only does it cost you $0, it can save you 5% a month just instantly off the top of your bill, which is pretty awesome, right? No long-term commitments, you can leave whenever you like. It's pretty fantastic. So that's EDP or IDP, much easier than EDPs, I'll tell you that right now. The second thing I'll say is, if you just want to have a conversation with somebody, we're about to put up a poll, and what I'd like you to do is just answer yes, right? So no one else will see this, but Mission will. So if you would like to have a conversation, have somebody reach out to you, let us know. Also, feel free to just self-service, go to missioncloud.com/IDP, go ahead and get the information started, and you can get reached out to that way. But if you are interested in getting reached out to about cost optimization, or you just want to talk to somebody and pick their brain, ask them some questions, definitely answer yes here. Now, I'll let folks continue to roll in with those answers. Really, this has been a very fun conversation. As always, Jeremy and Jason, it's a pleasure to kind of riff with you on cost optimization and best practices. Thank you all for coming and attending today. Got some really great engaging questions, enjoyed reviewing case studies and sort of our philosophy with you. And we're here to help, right? No pressure. Please do visit missioncloud.com, check out all that we have to offer, and hit missioncloud.com/IDP if you just want to go ahead and be a hero in your organization and start saving money right away. All right, folks, thank you so much. Have a great day. Thank you, Jeremy and Jason.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Yep, thank you. Cheers.